In the autumn of 1871, when authorities in Massachusetts finally broke down the doors of the abandoned Divine Healing Sanctuary on the outskirts of Salem, they discovered something that would haunt investigators for decades. Beneath the chapel's floorboards lay 847 detailed medical journals, each documenting what appeared to be impossible cures. Patients walking after paralysis, blind individuals regaining sight, tumors vanishing overnight. Yet these weren't records of miracles. They were the meticulous documentation of the most elaborate medical fraud in American history, orchestrated by three brothers who had turned divine healing into an art of calculated murder. For 37 years, the Hawthorne family operated what thousands believed was God's own healing sanctuary, when in reality, it was a sophisticated laboratory of human experimentation claiming over 400 lives. The state of Massachusetts sealed these records for 50 years, and church authorities have never publicly acknowledged their existence. Tonight, we reveal the terrifying truth about what really happened behind the sacred walls of the Divine Healing Sanctuary. Before we continue with the story of the Hawthorne Brothers and their unholy sanctuary, I need to ask you something. This channel isn't for everyone. It's only for the bravest souls who dare to uncover the darkest secrets hidden in our history. If you're one of those rare individuals who can handle the truth, no matter how disturbing, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Also, I'm curious, from which state are you listening to this story? Drop a comment below and tell me where you're from. Your courage to seek these buried truths sets you apart. Now, let's step back into the shadows of 1834 Massachusetts, where our tale of deception and death truly begins. The year was 1834, and Salem, Massachusetts still carried the weight of its infamous past. 42 years had passed since the witch trials, but the town remained deeply divided between old Puritan families and newer Protestant denominations seeking to establish their spiritual authority. The Second Great Awakening had swept through New England like wildfire, bringing a fervent belief in divine intervention and miraculous healing that challenged traditional Calvinist doctrine. Into this atmosphere of religious tension and spiritual hunger arrived three brothers who would forever change the meaning of sacred healing in America. Dr. Cornelius Hawthorne, 38, had studied medicine at Harvard before spending 5 years in Europe, where he observed the growing trend of medical tourism and faith healing. His younger brother, Reverend Obadiah Hawthorne, 35, possessed a commanding presence and a voice that could move congregations to tears with passionate sermons about God's healing power. The youngest, Ezekiel Hawthorne, 32, had trained as an apothecary in Boston and possessed an almost supernatural knowledge of herbs, minerals, and chemical compounds. The brothers purchased a sprawling colonial estate on Salem's outskirts, a property abandoned since 1692 when its owners fled during the witch trials. The three-story wooden structure sat on 12 acres surrounded by dense pine forests that provided perfect isolation. They transformed the main house into the Divine Healing Sanctuary, complete with a chapel, patient rooms, and what they told visitors was a prayer meditation chamber in the basement. What they didn't advertise was the sophisticated laboratory constructed beneath the chapel, accessible only through a hidden entrance behind the altar. Here, Ezekiel established the most advanced chemical operation in Massachusetts, with glass distillation equipment from Germany, hundreds of ceramic vessels, and anatomical charts mapping the human nervous system with frightening precision. The Hawthorne brothers understood something other faith healers missed: the power of specificity. While traveling preachers claimed general healing powers, the Hawthornes specialized in miraculous cures for the incurable. They targeted three conditions 1830s medicine couldn't treat: sudden onset paralysis, mysterious blindness, and rapidly growing tumors. Each condition, they claimed, could be reversed through intensive prayer and divine intervention, but only at their sanctuary, and only for those with sufficient faith and financial means. Cornelius used his medical credentials to establish relationships with physicians throughout New England, positioning himself as a doctor who acknowledged the limits of science before God's greater power. Obadiah traveled to churches across Massachusetts, delivering spellbinding sermons about faith and healing. Ezekiel worked quietly in the shadows, developing a divine compounds, substances that could create the very conditions his brothers claimed to cure. By spring 1835, the sanctuary welcomed its first patients, and word of the brothers' extraordinary abilities spread. What no patient realized was that they were entering the most sophisticated medical fraud in American history, one that would prey on human desperation for over 3 decades. The brothers had learned a crucial lesson from observing other fraudulent healers: the importance of documentation. Every patient was photographed before and after treatment. Their conditions were meticulously recorded in leather-bound journals that Cornelius maintained with scientific precision. These records, they claimed, were proof of God's work. In reality, they were the detailed documentation of a criminal enterprise that would eventually claim hundreds of lives. The operation began with divine selection. Cornelius would study patient records throughout New England, identifying individuals deteriorating beyond medical help. He corresponded with doctors, positioning himself as a colleague interested in desperate cases where only divine intervention remained possible. But the brothers' true genius lay in their parallel operation, the systematic creation of patients who appeared to need miraculous healing. Ezekiel had developed reversible affliction compounds, chemical preparations that could induce symptoms mimicking serious conditions. His masterpiece was a powder from a rare South American plant that, in precise doses, caused temporary paralysis lasting from 2 weeks to 3 months. The method was diabolically simple. They identified healthy individuals from wealthy families, often targeting those traveling alone. Through orchestrated chance encounters, they invited these individuals to tour their sanctuary, where Ezekiel served them tea laced with his compounds. Within days, victims experienced symptoms: gradual loss of feeling, vision problems, or what seemed like rapidly growing tumors, actually wax formations injected under the skin while they were unconscious. When these manufactured patients showed symptoms, the brothers discovered their conditions, expressing deep concern and offering sanctuary services. The victims, terrified and desperate, agreed to treatment. The brothers documented their conditions extensively, creating before and after photographs as proof. The healing process was theatrical. Obadiah conducted elaborate prayer sessions lasting hours, while Cornelius administered divine medicine, actually the antidotes Ezekiel had developed. Paralysis faded, vision returned, and wax tumors were skillfully removed during divine surgeries while patients were sedated. The brothers charged enormous fees, $500 to $2,000 per patient, fortunes representing lifetime savings for most families. They justified these costs by claiming divine healing required sacrifice and their ministry needed funding. Most families gladly paid, believing they witnessed genuine miracles. Word spread throughout New England and beyond. By 1837, letters arrived from families across America begging for help with genuinely ill relatives. The brothers faced a predicament. They had built their reputation on a 100% success rate, but now were asked to treat real incurable conditions. Their solution was cold-blooded. When patients arrived with genuine conditions, actual paralysis, real tumors, hereditary blindness, the brothers conducted their usual ceremonies. But instead of healing compounds, Ezekiel prepared divine transition medicine, carefully calculated doses of morphine and other substances causing patients to die peacefully in their sleep. The brothers told grieving families their loved ones had been called home by God just as healing was about to occur. They offered theological explanations about divine timing while privately documenting these deaths in separate journals locked in their basement laboratory. This dual operation, manufacturing miracles for healthy patients while eliminating genuinely sick ones, allowed the brothers to maintain their supernatural reputation while generating enormous profits. They understood that in an age of limited medical knowledge and strong faith, families would rather believe in a divine mystery than question miraculous healing. Margaret Whitmore arrived at the Divine Healing Sanctuary on a gray October morning in 1839, carrying a letter from a Boston physician and a heart heavy with desperation. Her 22-year-old daughter Sarah had experienced strange symptoms 3 weeks earlier: sudden dizzy spells, gradual vision loss in her left eye, and growing hand weakness. Margaret spent her late husband's entire legacy seeking treatment in Boston, New York, and Philadelphia, but no physician could explain Sarah's condition. When Dr. Cornelius Hawthorne contacted her through their family physician, claiming he had successfully treated identical cases through divine intervention, Margaret saw an answer to her prayers. The Hawthorne brothers welcomed Margaret and Sarah with their trademark warmth and authority. Cornelius examined Sarah with practiced professionalism, taking careful notes. Obadiah prayed over her with passionate intensity, declaring he sensed divine healing energy. Ezekiel prepared preparatory medicine to help Sarah's body ready itself. What Margaret didn't know was that Sarah's symptoms perfectly matched one of Ezekiel's compounds, a substance administered during a carefully orchestrated meeting at a Boston coffee house 2 months earlier. Sarah was not genuinely ill. She was a manufactured patient, selected because her family's wealth made them ideal targets. Margaret agreed to pay $1,200 for Sarah's intensive treatment. For 3 weeks, she watched her daughter undergo healing ceremonies, consume specially prepared medicines, and participate in extended prayer sessions that gradually restored her health. Sarah's vision returned, her strength improved, and dizzy spells became less frequent. On November 15, 1839, Sarah experienced a complete recovery. Her vision fully restored, hand steady, she felt stronger than in months. Margaret wept with joy, praising God for the miracle. The brothers photographed Sarah before and after, adding her case to their documented healings. But Margaret's gratitude turned to suspicion when she discovered something haunting. While packing Sarah's belongings, she accidentally knocked over a small wooden box in Sarah's room. It opened, revealing brown glass vials labeled with strange symbols containing different colored powders and liquids. Margaret, a former schoolteacher curious about scientific matters, copied the symbols onto paper, planning to ask a pharmacist in Boston. When she showed them to Mr. Henley, the family apothecary, his face went pale. "Mrs. Whitmore," he whispered, glancing around, "these are not healing compounds. This symbol indicates belladonna extract, a poison causing vision problems and weakness. This is wolf's bane, which creates paralysis. And this," he pointed to a twisted tree symbol, "is something I've never seen, but the notation suggests an antidote compound." Margaret felt the world shift. If the vials contain poisons and antidotes, Sarah's illness was artificially created, her healing an elaborate performance. She returned to Salem that evening, determined to confront the brothers. At the sanctuary, they welcomed her warmly, expressing concern about her distress. When she produced the copied symbols, Cornelius examined them with confusion. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said gently, "someone has played a cruel joke. These symbols are from an old alchemical text, medieval superstitions with nothing to do with modern medicine or divine healing. Perhaps someone placed those vials in Sarah's room to test your faith." Obadiah nodded gravely. "Satan often attacks those who have witnessed God's power, Mrs. Whitmore. He plants seeds of doubt through deception. You must not let these vials diminish the reality of your daughter's healing." Margaret wanted to believe them, but something in their manner, a subtle tension, 2 careful word choices, made her suspicious. She investigated further, starting with other families claiming miracles at the sanctuary. Her investigation led to the Peton family of Concord, whose son was supposedly healed of sudden paralysis 6 months earlier. Mrs. Peton revealed disturbing similarities. Like Sarah, young Thomas developed symptoms gradually after a chance encounter. Like Sarah, his condition followed a specific pattern: weakness, partial paralysis, gradual recovery during sanctuary treatment. But Mrs. Peton revealed something chilling. During Thomas's treatment, Ezekiel seemed to know exactly which medicines to prepare and when, as if following a schedule. When she commented to Cornelius, he explained divine healing followed God's perfect timing, an answer she found unsatisfying. Margaret tracked down 12 families who had brought patients to the sanctuary over 4 years. Every case showed the same pattern: sudden onset after chance encounters, gradual deterioration, complete recovery during treatment. Symptoms were always paralysis, vision problems, or mysterious tumors appearing and disappearing without explanation. But Margaret also discovered something horrifying. 3 families told of patients who died during treatment, genuinely ill individuals seeking healing. In each case, the brothers explained the patients were called home by God just as healing was about to occur. Families accepted this, finding comfort in believing their loved ones were welcomed into heaven. Margaret realized the Hawthorne brothers operated 2 schemes simultaneously, creating artificial illnesses in healthy patients for enormous fees, while systematically eliminating genuinely ill patients to maintain their reputation. The scope was staggering. She returned to the sanctuary one final time, not as a grateful mother but as an investigator. She arrived on a snowy December evening, saying she wanted to make a substantial donation for Sarah's healing. They welcomed her, inviting her to stay for dinner and tour their facilities. During the meal, Margaret steered conversation toward their methods, asking about success rates and conditions treated. The brothers spoke confidently of their 100% success rate, saying they only accepted patients God chose. When Margaret asked about patients who died, they explained these individuals were called home after healing was complete spiritually. After dinner, Obadiah showed Margaret their private chapel for intensive healing ceremonies. Walking through the sanctuary, Margaret noticed details missed before: unusually thick walls, sound dampening preventing noise travel, furniture placement concealing hidden doors or passages. At the chapel, Margaret excused herself to use the necessary but hid behind a large wooden cabinet near the altar. She waited until the brothers retired, then explored thoroughly. Her persistence rewarded her. A loose floorboard behind the altar revealed a narrow staircase into darkness. Despite fear, Margaret descended into the most horrifying sight of my life, a fully equipped laboratory with hundreds of glass vessels, anatomical charts, and rows of leather-bound journals documenting their crimes. The basement laboratory, carved from the foundation, spanned nearly the building's footprint. Shelves held glass containers labeled with symbols for compounds and effects. One wall held Ezekiel's chemical apparatus, sophisticated glass tubes, heated vessels, and distillation equipment impressive for any university laboratory. Tables were covered with scales, measuring devices, and notebooks with precise calculations and formulas. The air carried a strange odor mix, sweet floral scents with bitter medicinal smells. But the documentation revealed the operation's scope. Shelves held leather-bound journals organized by year and patient type, divine healings, and divine transitions. The first detailed patients artificially afflicted then cured, the second documented those quietly eliminated. Opening a Divine Healings journal, Margaret found entries like scientific case studies, patient 47, administered compound C7 paralysis inducer at 3.2 ratio mixed with chamomile tea. Symptoms appeared within 72 hours as predicted. Subject experienced complete lower body paralysis by day 8. Administered antidote C7 during healing ceremony day 21. Full recovery within 48 hours. Payment received $800. Photograph documentation complete. The Divine Transitions journals were more disturbing, documenting systematic murder with clinical detachment. Patient 23, genuine paralysis from stroke. Administered compound X for morphine derivative during evening prayer session. Subject expired peacefully at 11:30 p.m. Family informed of divine calling. Payment received $1,500. Body prepared for burial with standard preparation compounds to prevent detection. Margaret discovered the brothers had perfected methods for years, developing sophisticated compounds mimicking virtually any condition. Ezekiel's notebooks contained detailed research on the human nervous system, circulation, and effects of plant and mineral compounds on organs, a catalogue of artificial diseases and cures. In a corner, a small surgical area with a table, instruments, and medical supplies was where brothers performed divine surgery to remove wax tumors implanted in unconscious patients. Most disturbing was a detailed ledger tracking financial success. Over 5 years, they generated over $40,000 from patients, an enormous fortune from dozens of families' life savings. The ledger contained expansion plans, including correspondence with potential associates in other states interested in similar operations. Margaret spent 3 hours copying names and details from journals. She found records of patients she interviewed, confirming artificial illnesses, but also evidence of crimes beyond medical fraud, systematic murder for years, growing boldness from success. Preparing to leave, she heard footsteps above in the chapel. The brothers discovered her absence. She replaced journals and climbed the stairs, but at the top faced Cornelius holding a lantern with cold fury. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said quietly, "you've seen things not meant for your eyes." The confrontation in the candlelit chapel would later be described as when years of carefully constructed deception collided with unshakable determination for truth. Cornelius blocked the hidden entrance, medical bag in one hand, lantern in the other, while Obadiah and Ezekiel emerged from altar shadows. "Mrs. Whitmore," Obadiah said with authoritative tone, "you've wandered into areas reserved for private prayer. You may have misunderstood what you've seen." Margaret, clutching papers with copied journal information, faced them with surprising courage. "I understand perfectly what I've seen," she replied steadily. "Records of your crimes, poisons creating artificial illnesses, antidotes as fake cures, documentation of murders." The brothers exchanged glances. Masks of religious authority and medical compassion fell away, revealing cold calculation. "You're speaking of things you couldn't possibly understand," Cornelius said, stepping closer. "Our work represents the highest healing. We give people hope, strengthen faith, provide transformative experiences. Methods are irrelevant compared to spiritual benefits." Spiritual benefits. Margaret's voice rose. "You've poisoned healthy people and murdered sick ones. Stolen fortunes from desperate families, built reputation on systematic fraud and murder." Ezekiel, silent until now, whispered, "Mrs. Whitmore, you have two choices. Leave tonight and never speak of what you think you've seen, or join patients called home by God during healing." The threat was clear, but Margaret had prepared. During investigation, she wrote detailed letters to Boston authorities describing suspicions and evidence, leaving them with her attorney with instructions to deliver them to the Massachusetts Attorney General if she failed to return by a specific date. "It's too late for threats," she told brothers. "I've documented everything about your operation. If something happens to me, authorities will know where to look and what to investigate." Brothers realized they faced a new situation, a witness who uncovered methods and prepared for retaliation. For the first time, they dealt with someone methodical in gathering evidence and protecting herself. Cornelius decided to attempt final deception rather than harm Margaret. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said pleadingly, "you're a woman of intelligence and compassion. What if our work, unconventional as it seems, brought comfort to hundreds? What if the appearance of healing is as beneficial as actual healing?" "You're asking me to become complicit in murder," Margaret replied. "I've seen your records. I know how many genuinely sick patients you've killed to maintain reputation." Conversation continued another hour with brothers alternating threats, bribes, and justifications. They offered substantial money for silence, promised to cease operation if she kept secrets, even suggested she become a partner. Margaret remained unmoved. Finally, Obadiah made a statement later used as evidence of premeditation at trial. "Mrs. Whitmore, you forced us to choose between our life's work and your silence. We spent years building something bringing meaning to lives. We cannot allow one person's misguided justice to destroy everything we've accomplished." Margaret recognized a final threat but understood brothers operated from desperation, not calculated control. She backed toward chapel door, keeping eyes on them while reaching for handle. "I'm leaving now," she said firmly. "I'll ensure authorities know what you've done. Families who lost loved ones deserve truth. People you defrauded deserve justice." She opened the door into cold December night, but walking away, heard Ezekiel call out, "Mrs. Whitmore, you've no idea what you've set in motion. Our work is bigger than you understand. Others will continue what we started." Margaret didn't look back, walking through snow toward Salem, carrying knowledge she uncovered one of America's most sophisticated criminal enterprises. She didn't know her investigation would reveal connections to similar operations in other states, that the Hawthorne network extended far beyond their small sanctuary. Margaret's revelations triggered an investigation exposing a criminal network spanning multiple states and dozens. When Sheriff Thomas Hartwell and deputies arrived December 22, 1839, brothers had fled overnight, leaving extensive documentation and laboratory equipment. Investigation revealed brothers corresponded with similar operations in Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Letters in a locked chest in Cornelius's room showed they shared techniques and compounds with other fraudulent healers, creating a coordinated medical fraud network operating nearly a decade. District Attorney William Morrison later described scope as unprecedented in American criminal history. Brothers corresponded with 17 individuals operating similar schemes, from small-scale targeting individual families to large sanctuaries attracting patients across region. Network had standardized methods for creating artificial illnesses, training for new operators, and system for sharing information about wealthy target families. Brothers essentially franchised operation, providing compounds and techniques for profit percentages. Authorities raiding other locations found similar operations in Hartford, Albany, Philadelphia, and Richmond. Coordinated raids January 15, 1840 arrested 14 individuals and recovered documentation revealing true network scope. Evidence showed network responsible for over 400 genuinely ill patient deaths across 5 states while defrauding thousands of families of life savings. Artificial illness schemes generated over $200,000 in fraudulent payments, one of America's most financially successful criminal enterprises then. But investigation revealed something horrifying. Even experienced law enforcement, brothers conducted compound research on unwilling subjects. Laboratory contained detailed documentation of experiments on patients given increasingly dangerous chemical combinations to test effects on human body. Sheriff Hartwell's report described systematic human experimentation rivaling most disturbing accounts of medical abuse in European history. Brothers used patients as test subjects for new compounds, documenting results of chemical combinations and effects on organs and systems. Manhunt extended across multiple states with wanted posters throughout New England and beyond. Federal marshals became involved when evidence suggested brothers fled beyond state jurisdiction. Search complicated by multiple identities and safe houses. Margaret Whitmore became key witness, providing detailed testimony about laboratory discovery and confrontation. Her careful documentation proved crucial, establishing crime scope and systematic nature. Trial beginning September 1840 attracted national attention. Newspapers covered proceedings, courtroom packed with victim family members, medical professionals, and religious leaders wanting to understand how elaborate deception lasted so long. Prosecution presented evidence of calculated cruelty and systematic exploitation. Witnesses testified about artificial illnesses suffered and enormous fees paid for fake cures. Families of patients who died testified about losses, finally understanding loved ones murdered. Defense argued brothers genuinely believed in healing abilities, documenting methods to better understand divine intervention. Extensive premeditation evidence, systematic crime nature, and clear financial motivations made argument impossible. When time comes to reveal final truth about Hawthorne Network, remember you're among select few with courage to hear these darkest American history secrets. If you've made it this far, you're not like most. You seek truth regardless how disturbing. Hit like if this investigation sends chills, and subscribe for more hidden stories few channels dare tell. Share with someone loving dark mysteries. Together we uncover secrets buried over a century. Trial took unexpected turn when Ezekiel Hawthorne, captured Baltimore November 1840, cooperated with authorities for reduced sentence. His testimony over 3 days shocked prosecutors investigating case nearly a year. Ezekiel explained network developed medical theater, elaborate performances simulating miraculous healing while generating enormous profits. We understood, Ezekiel testified, people needed to believe in miracles more than actual healing. Our artificial illnesses and cures provided experiences strengthening faith and giving hope, even if medical effects temporary. But testimony revealed cold calculation behind systematic murders. Asked about patients dying during treatment, he explained, genuinely ill patients presented a problem for our reputation. We built success on 100% healing rate, couldn't allow real diseases damaging credibility. Transition medicine ensured patients died peacefully, families found comfort believing they were called home by God. Prosecution presented evidence forever changing case understanding. Hidden Baltimore laboratory authorities discovered journals documenting advanced research, experiments on patients without knowledge or consent testing compound effects on human body, results used developing more sophisticated artificial illnesses. Journals revealed brothers used patients as test subjects for chemical combinations creating virtually any symptom, temporary blindness, paralysis, skin conditions, respiratory problems, mental confusion. Each compound tested on multiple patients, results documented for future use. Most disturbing revelation came when Ezekiel described long-term goals. Brothers worked toward medical legitimacy, planning transition from fraudulent healing to recognized medical researchers. They intended using accumulated wealth and documented research establishing legitimate medical institution continuing human experiments under scientific advancement guise. We believed, Ezekiel testified, our research would contribute to genuine medical breakthroughs. Compounds developed and systematic documentation of effects represented valuable scientific knowledge benefiting humanity. Methods used were necessary advancing medical understanding ways traditional research never achieve. Prosecution's final witness, Dr. Henry Patterson from Harvard Medical School reviewing research documents, provided scientific context helping jury understand crime nature. What Hawthorne Brothers created, Dr. Patterson explained, was not medical research but systematic human experimentation without consent designed primarily financial gain. Compounds were not treatments but weapons creating artificial suffering for profit. Documentation, while scientifically detailed, represents evidence of calculated cruelty rather than medical advancement. Jury deliberated 6 hours returning guilty verdicts all charges. Brothers sentenced death for murder, judge declaring crimes assault on very foundations of trust between healers and patients and perversion of religious faith demanding ultimate punishment. But even as justice assured, full network scope continued unfolding. Ezekiel's cooperation led authorities hidden Boston warehouse storing accumulated wealth and research materials, over $60,000 cash and gold, hundreds chemical compounds, and most comprehensive collection human experimentation data American history. Among materials, leather-bound ledger Ezekiel called Master Research Journal containing detailed plans expanding operation nationwide with targets major cities and correspondents potential associates West St. Louis, South New Orleans. Brothers envisioned network fraudulent healing sanctuaries spanning entire country. Ledger revealed that advanced compounds creating symptoms indistinguishable serious diseases like consumption, heart conditions, even certain madness forms. They planned expanding beyond paralysis, blindness, tumors encompassing virtually every major medical condition known 19th century medicine. Perhaps most chilling, discovery elimination protocols, detailed procedures killing patients appearing natural, attributable existing conditions. Brothers developed methods inducing heart failure, respiratory collapse, strokes leaving no foul play trace during limited autopsies performed that era. Cornelius and Obadiah executed March 15, 1841, ending criminal careers but not influence American medical fraud. Ezekiel, cooperation securing life sentence, continued providing information authorities similar operations across country several years after brothers' deaths. Revelations led discovery fraudulent healing operations 12 additional states, over 50 arrests, evidence documenting crimes spanning nearly 2 decades. Hawthorne Network, investigators called it, far more extensive initially realized. Investigation revealed brothers training associates methods since 1836, providing instruction manuals and starter compound supplies individuals establishing own fraudulent healing operations. Associates operated independently while sharing information and technique central network, creating criminal web main Georgia. One most disturbing discoveries, series letters Ezekiel physician Charleston, South Carolina discussing using compounds creating artificial slave illnesses cured propaganda purposes. Letters suggested some slaveholders considering fraudulent healing demonstrations supporting claims beneficial affects slavery African American health. Medical community response swift comprehensive. Medical schools required courses identifying fraudulent treatments, professional associations established committees investigating suspicious healing claims. Case turning point American medical practice, leading increased regulation oversight alternative healing methods. Religious communities equally affected. Many denominations issued statements distancing faith healing practices, establishing guidelines evaluating miraculous healing claims. Hawthorne case cautionary tale dangers mixing religious faith medical treatment, influencing theological discussions divine intervention nature decades. But perhaps most lasting impact, defect public trust medical authority. Revelation respected physicians engaging systematic deception led increased skepticism medical claims, greater demand evidence-based treatment. Case contributed development rigorous medical testing procedures ethical guidelines evolving modern medical standards. Margaret Whitmore, Courage Exposing Entire Network, became prominent advocate medical reform patient rights. Using experience establishing one America's first patient advocacy organizations educating families medical fraud, providing support fraudulent treatment victims. Work led passage Massachusetts' first medical fraud prevention laws 1845 requiring healers provide evidence training, prohibiting administering undisclosed substances patients. Laws model similar legislation other states, helping establish legal framework modern medical regulation. 1871, 30 years after execution, authorities received unexpected letter Massachusetts State Prison. Ezekiel Hawthorne, 69 dying consumption, requested final meeting investigators reveal complete truth operation. Meeting prison infirmary cold February morning provided final pieces puzzle haunting investigators 3 decades. Ezekiel, voice weakened illness but mind sharp, began admission stunning investigators, everything discovered about operation only surface accomplished. Artificial illnesses, murders, financial fraud, visible aspects much larger experiment human behavior social control. Ezekiel revealed brothers conducted faith manipulation research, systematic studies how religious belief exploited control human behavior. Healing ceremonies designed not just generate profits but gather data psychological mechanisms governing faith, hope, desperation. We documented everything, Ezekiel explained. Every patient's reactions, every family's responses, every community's interpretation our work. Creating comprehensive understanding human beings respond promise miraculous intervention. Journals contained far more medical data, detailed psychological profiles human vulnerability. Implication staggering. Brothers essentially conducted one first systematic studies psychological manipulation American history, using patients unwitting subjects experiments understanding limits human gullibility, power false hope. Ezekiel also revealed network sharing psychological data associates using purposes beyond medical fraud. Some associates politicians interested manipulating public opinion, others businessmen seeking develop effective advertising sales techniques. We proved, Ezekiel said barely audible, human beings believe almost anything presented sufficient authority wrapped promise miraculous intervention. Our research showed people's need believe impossible so strong they ignore obvious evidence deception maintaining faith provides emotional comfort. But final revelation perhaps most disturbing. Metal box hidden beneath cell floorboards preserved single journal containing ultimate research, detailed plans using psychological manipulation techniques massive scale. Journal outlined strategies creating artificial crises resolved fraudulent interventions, methods identifying exploiting community vulnerabilities, techniques maintaining long-term deception careful management evidence witnesses. Investigators realized comprehensive manual large-scale social manipulation disguised scientific research. Our work sanctuary, Ezekiel concluded, never really about healing even money. About proving human society built foundations systematically undermined understanding mechanisms faith fear. We demonstrated even most sacred trusts between healers patients, religious leaders congregations exploited individuals sufficient knowledge determination. Ezekiel died 3 days final confession, taking complete details psychological manipulation techniques not formally studied legitimate researchers another century. Journal sealed court order, remaining classified until 1971 released academic researchers studying medical fraud history. Divine Healing Sanctuary remained abandoned over 30 years after arrest. Local residents reported strange sounds unexplained lights building, leading rumors cite haunted victim spirits. Reality, phenomena likely caused chemical residues Ezekiel's laboratory continuing emit vapors creating unusual reactions building materials. 1872, building demolished Salem City Council order, but workers discovered something missed original investigation. Beneath laboratory, Ezekiel constructed additional chamber containing most sensitive research materials. Hidden room held detailed documentation experiments making known horrors operation pale comparison. Final chamber contained evidence brothers testing compounds children using patients families unwitting accomplices experiments understanding artificial illnesses affecting developing minds bodies. Documentation showed specific compounds designed causing temporary developmental delays, behavioral changes, learning difficulties young patients. Final revelations never made public, authorities determined information too disturbing releasing, could cause additional trauma surviving family members. Document sealed permanently, access restricted. Researchers studying medical abuse prevention. Today, sanctuary site occupied small park dedicated memory victims. Simple granite monument lists 400 confirmed victim names. Inscription, in memory those suffered died seeking healing hope. May tragedy serve warning dangers false promises importance questioning claiming miraculous powers. Margaret Whitmore lived 87, final decades working prevent medical fraud support deceptive healing practices victims. Autobiography published 1885 became one first detailed accounts medical fraud investigation, influencing consumer protection laws development throughout United States. Sarah Whitmore, whose artificial illness first exposed operation, became physician dedicating career legitimate medical research treatment medical fraud victims. Established one America's first clinic specifically helping individuals recover physical psychological effects fraudulent medical treatment. Hawthorne case fundamentally changed American medicine, leading medical licensing requirements, ethical review boards, patient protection laws governing medical practice today. Crimes demonstrated needs systematic oversight medical claims, helped establish principle extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. But perhaps most important legacy, demonstration courage required challenging respected authority figures abusing trust positions. Margaret Whitmore's willingness investigate suspicious circumstances confront dangerous criminals showed ordinary citizens power exposing even most sophisticated deceptions combining determination careful investigation. Complete story serves reminder evil often disguises virtue, preying human vulnerability often present helpers healers, most dangerous deceptions exploit deepest needs hope, healing, faith. Age medical misinformation fraudulent healing claims continuing exploiting vulnerable populations, case remains powerful example why skeptical inquiry evidence-based evaluation essential protections against abusing trust exploiting desperation. Hawthorne Brothers built deception empire fundamental human need believe miraculous intervention facing suffering loss. Crime succeeded understanding people's desire hope overriding capacity skeptical thinking, desperation making even intelligent individuals vulnerable elaborate deception. But eventual exposure punishment demonstrated truth way emerging even most carefully constructed lies, evidence-based investigation overcoming sophisticated deception, justice, though sometimes delayed, ultimately prevailing against calculated evil. Divine healing sanctuary story shows behind every miracle claim lies genuine phenomena withstanding rigorous investigation or carefully constructed deception crumbling exposed determined inquiry. Hawthorne Brothers chose deception, choice ultimately led destruction countless potential future victims salvation. What think terrifying tale medical deception systematic murder? Hawthorne story shows easily trust exploited, dangerous false hope becomes manufactured profiting human desperation. Ever encountered situations medical healing claims seem too good true? Share thoughts comments. Love hearing truth-seeking community. Found investigation chilling did, don't forget subscribe hit notification bell never missing explorations America's darkest secrets. Remember, only understanding historical horrors protecting ourselves similar deceptions today. Until next time, keep questioning, investigating, never stop seeking truth no matter disturbing.